be here today for several reasons, the main being that I will stand up and fight for my freedom, my children's freedom. It is all about God, country, and family. When someone tries to step on those, I stand up. And I'm happy that you all are here as well. We need to join forces when we are faced with this sort of, that's right, tyranny. I was on Facebook a couple of days ago, and yes, I'm on there quite often. I'm there really to keep my finger on the pulse of what's sort of popping and shaking in the world. And of course, the subject of our constitutionally guaranteed rights to bear arms was a hot topic. We all are aware of what happened in Sandy Hook, a few weeks ago. And when something like that happens, of course, we naturally start talking about banning guns. We start talking about the Second Amendment. It becomes very prevalent, and as it should. We should talk about these things when a horrific crime like this happens. I think it's healthy to talk about that, because it is the nature of the horror that happened that sort of brings us together. At the same time, we need to be vigilant in recognizing exactly what those who wish to limit or remove certain rights that we are guaranteed by our Constitution. We need to be vigilant and aware of what they're attempting to do to each and every one of us. We need to be cognizant of the people, for they are extremely dangerous to the very foundation of this country. Our rights as Americans are guaranteed by that Constitution. Our founding fathers, who were revolutionaries, created our Constitution to protect American citizens, which includes protection from the reach of a potentially tyrannical government. How can we do that? We do that by being armed. Think about the Second Amendment and what it is exactly. As it's written, it says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. Yep. Don't mess with me. It's mine.
Very clear cut.
Amen. The right to keep and bear arms is simple. Yet there are some who's out there right now arguing that the Second Amendment, and this is totally ridiculous, was written to give hunters the right to bear arms in order to kill their food.
Right.
And since we have grocery stores and us common folks don't need to be shooting the deer and the whatever, we don't need a gun. Why do we need it? That's what they're telling us. So we shouldn't have them. So this is the furthest from the truth. It's poppycock. It's bullcrap. Pardon my French.
Not a bill of needs, it's a bill of rights.
Exactly. Not a bill of needs, it's a bill of rights. The Second Amendment has to do with freedom and our ability to own and brandish a weapon if we so choose. We are law-abiding citizens. That's our right. It means we are free. A gun is the most powerful weapon in any revolution, and trust me, tyrannical dictators know it.
Yeah, right.
They want to take it from us. Remember, our founding fathers also knew this well because they were what? They were revolutionaries. And if you look at every single tyrannical overthrowing of any country and its people, you will see one common thread. They disarmed the people first.
That's right. Yeah.
Under the auspices of protection of the people. In reality, it was the removal of freedom of the people to protect themselves from the dictator and from his tyrannical government. We have a dictator sitting in our White House. I'm telling you right now. And what will happen if this dictator takes your rights and my rights? We become enslaved to that dictator. Oh, hell no. No. Not happening on my watch. No. Not. Check this out. Look at American history. Look at our history. What was the last group of people who were not permitted to own guns? Who were they? Black people were not allowed to own guns. Why? Because they were slaves. If you gave a black person a gun, they weren't going to be a slave anymore. Don't give the black person a gun.
Right.
Keep them enslaved. Exactly. When a government knows its citizens can rise up against it, they are less inclined to even think about enslaving its people. Period. I'm staying armed. Don't come up against me. I will shoot your ass. When a government wants to control its people, it will begin taking the people's ability to protect themselves away. They will erode the rights slowly, and on the surface it will appear to be done logically, and it will always start under the auspices of protecting the innocent. Right now they're picking on Sandy Hook and the children. It was horrible, but this is not what it's about. Smoke and mirrors, people. It's exactly what's happening right now. We hear things like normal citizens do not need assault weapons. There's no need to own a weapon that has a clip of more than 10 rounds in it. Says who? Yeah. Says who? If you got one, I'm going to have one.
Right. That's right.
It's also a magazine.
Yes. Those statements are all men of smoke and mirrors. The passion of fear and the false security of being looked at after by someone, by a government, in order to deflect our attention from the real purpose of infringing on our Second Amendment rights. My right to protect myself and those I love from evil, using an assault weapon if I choose, or a pistol, is my right. Given to me by the courtesy of the Second Amendment. One other thing I want to share with you before I close. As important as this is that we are gathering here today to protect our rights, the Second Amendment, we need to be aware that what's going on right now, daily, by the tyrant sitting in the White House, is the erosion of our freedom. He is doing all he can do. This right now is almost like they're throwing things out to get us scurrying and paying attention to just this, as we forget about Benghazi, as we forget about, there you go, Fast and Furious. We're forgetting about that, exactly. Pay attention to this. I'm coming after this, people. We all gather. It's important we gather, but we need to gather on every single issue. We need to be making him accountable. We do not back down at all, ever, period. And I will say this, they can try and ban guns all they want, but they can't ban evil. And I will fight evil, period. All of us. So that's it. Thank you for listening to me. And I'm actually really happy right now to introduce the next speaker. He is, first and foremost, a loving father and a husband. To me and hundreds of other people, he is a hero because he is a Marine. I love him. Yeah. He's a businessman. He's a patriot. He's an all-around great guy. He is a really close friend of mine. I'm particularly happy to have spoken before him because I'm sort of like the opening act for the main event. Yeah. If you've not heard him speak before, you're in for a treat today, one that you will remember. And I hope you remember him in the next few months and straight through 2014. Lend him your support. For there's a group out there working right now to draft him to run for governor. Ladies and gentlemen, we need him as governor in this state. Please welcome Mr. Charles Lawler.
Wow.
Marie's over that word of applause. So, first and foremost, since we do have people here that are recording this, and some of which have come from Fox 45 and other networks, we need to make sure they understand that we completely understand that what happened in Newton, Connecticut was a tragedy of all sorts. Yes. It's not something that I, as a father of 4 daughters, would ever want to walk up to a reality or wake up to a reality that my daughter's been gunned down by any person, male or female, black or white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, in the comfort of their own school and education. It's a tragedy. It's wrong. And I would stand, if that gentleman was still alive, I'd go after him myself. He did himself a favor by taking his own life. I don't care how crazy he pleads. However, trying to blame my weapon for the cause of those children's death is about like suing McDonald's because you burnt yourself with their coffee. Oh, I forgot, they're doing that too.
No common sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at this crowd. I could not help but be overtaken with some joy and laughter when I saw the sweatshirt in the front that reads Second Amendment Sisters. I thought that was kind of awesome because that further helps to illustrate this point. When you start messing with our Constitution, when you start messing with our amendments, when you start messing with our Bill of Rights, it's not a white issue, it's not a black issue, it's an American issue, and every patriot is going to stand against it. United we shall stand. However, there's some, can I say, morons that have decided to make this a political football. Right. To take this issue, starting with the gentleman that occupies the home right behind us, which we will take from you, by the way, momentarily. They have made an attempt to try and turn this into a political football of sorts. It's the flavor of the month. Yep. Like Jenny said, they're trying to get us from looking at the true issues that our nation's having problems with. While people continue to make life and death decisions while filling up a gas tank, whether or not to fill it up all the way so they can buy some hamburger helper for dinner, we're arguing over our Second Amendment rights that were given to us constitutionally. Something is wrong with this kind of hypocrisy. But here's why I'm excited. We're standing up. Yep. Amen. It's bringing us together, and we're going to keep standing together. Now, I was at a this is important. I was at a prayer meeting this morning at a local church in Prince George's County. I was invited guest, and the pastor for the morning, the priest, I really enjoyed his message because he had a little funny story at the beginning. It talked about the importance of doing whatever it takes to bring people together. His story went a little something like this. He said that there was a guy who decided to take a couple Sundays off, stop coming to church, because he enjoyed playing golf with a buddy. Well, one Sunday afternoon, a rattlesnake decided to bite his son. Son gained a fever, is on his way out to leave and go see the Lord Jesus Christ. The young man was dying. The father called the pastor and said, "Pastor, please come to my home and pray for my child." The pastor gets to the house, sees the child. He says, "Well, let me go ahead and start praying now." The pastor says, "Lord, please, we ask you, of course, in your son Jesus' name to heal this boy. And we thank you that this boy is going to be healed. We speak that in faith." He said, "And I thank you so much for the father's commitment, because the father has committed that he would now start going to church every Sunday if you heal his son." And then he said, "Oh, Lord, and I thank you most of all for the rattlesnake." He said, "Because the rattlesnake did in one Sunday afternoon what I couldn't do in the past 3 years, and that's get this young man to church." I am grateful for some of these idiots that are starting to mess with our rights, because it's waking us up. There's a revival in this country. The United States of America is about to, mark my words, and it's going to start here in Maryland. We're about to turn a corner of united. That the founders founders intended from the beginning. We made some mistakes with our Constitution initially. We've since fixed them, and now they're starting to see what freedom looks like across every color, across every denomination, and across every party affiliation. This is what freedom looks like. This is what freedom looks like. And I'm proud to stand right next to you, to call you my brother and call you my sister, to include my sister for the Second Amendment. And we'll stand proudly. Now, I had a conversation with a gentleman, because I want to make sure that we frame and completely understand why in the world we're out here. In that Second Amendment, it does say that we should protect, and in fact it said specifically, our rights to not just keep, but also bear arms should not be infringed upon. Once you start giving your liberties away, they take it piece by piece, and now they're after the whole thing. In my mind's eye, that amendment means I can carry my Glock with me. I had a gentleman say to me as I left the prayer service, "You going to go speak?" I said, "I sure am." On the Second Amendment, I said, "I sure am." He said, "You must be for it." I said, "I'm a Second Amendment Marine. What do you expect?" So then he further said, "Wow, then you must not believe in prayer." I said, "I do believe in prayer. Just sometimes I pray a little better with a Glock 45 next to me. That's all." Say this, my wife is here, Rosa, she's behind me. She's a little bitty something, but now ever since I've taught her how to shoot, she gets excited about the opportunity of somebody breaking in. We get so excited now. Did you hear that? Did somebody break in? We want somebody to break in our house. I've taught her how to low crawl. We found the soft spots in the house. Y'all think I'm kidding, but I'm serious. Come on by the house, I'll give you the address. Break in if you want to. Because when you're on my property, there's nowhere to run. And we're going to lock the doors to keep you in. We don't want you leaving. Once you came over, you got to get comfortable. Well, I'm at the Pentagon. I'm sitting down and talking to a civilian friend of mine. He happens to be against the Second Amendment in terms of the rights that I believe in. And he says to me, "I don't understand why you need an assault weapon to go shoot a deer." And I said, "Well, sir, see, you got the premise all wrong." I said, "I want you to imagine something, and you all keep this in your memory banks. Take this with you today when somebody challenges you on the Second Amendment. When our founding fathers provided for us in the Constitution a Second Amendment within the Bill of Rights that talked about the right to bear arms, it wasn't for shooting deer." Right.
What was it for?
That wasn't the issue. I'm so glad you asked that question, Mike Blackson. And he's not a plant either. Although it could be. But let me answer his question. I said, could you imagine if there had been a governor of any state or a president at that time that decided to pass a law and say this: there's no sense for any farmer to have muskets. So by law, we're taking out all muskets, and all you can have are bow and arrows, because that's all you need to hunt anyway. What would have happened as the British redcoats made their way over to our country to take away our freedoms? It was necessary and proper and required for every man, every farmer with a musket to grab that, to defend his home, to defend his family against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Oh, I'm going somewhere today. Now understand something. I wouldn't have wanted to be the farmer fighting the most powerful army at that time, the British redcoats, with a bow and arrow. I need a musket. And I told my friend at the Pentagon this. I said, the spirit of the amendment, the character behind the words, the principle behind the words means that any enemy that has the wherewithal to try to come in and take my freedoms, my weaponry ought to be at least equivalent to my adversary. Right. Yeah. So if you want to limit my clips, then you need to limit the clips of those enemy adversaries. He said, "Do you really think somebody's going to come across the Atlantic Ocean to do your family harm?" I said, "You know what, I'm not sure, but I'm going to be ready either way." And by the way, it's not just the foreign enemy, it's the domestic ones I have to worry about too. So then the civilian said this to me. He said, "You must not trust the government." Nope. You can't make said, here's your sign.
Germany trusted their government.
Do I trust the, are you kidding?
No.
Do I trust the, are you kidding? I trust it about as far as my Glock can fire.
That's right.
It does not mean that I'm an anti-American. I'm all American.
Right.
I'm all freedom. I'm God-loving American freedom, and I intend to defend, as I did when I put my right hand to swear in the Marine Corps to defend this nation. I will defend my family against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I figure the Lord gave me 4 daughters for a reason. Which means I'm the one that's got to take care of business. So, like I said, come on to the house if you want to. I guarantee you won't be the same when you leave. The hypocrisy is out of control. Our government is out of control. Our governor, he's trying to go so far to the left of Governor Cuomo. They did such a terrible job in New York. Before March comes, they're going to have to do something about the law, because right now, their own public safety servants, their own police officers, by the 1st of March, the weapons that they carry is going to be illegal according to New York state law. Yeah. Genius! That's the kind of people we have running our country.
Right.
We're not going down.
But let me tell you something, gentlemen, ladies, it's not going to be that way in Maryland. You can say what you want to say, do what you want to do, but there's enough freedom-loving folks here in this state. We've lost too many battles already. We understand now it's time for us to come together for such a time as this, and we will stand together and we will maintain freedom and our rights by any means necessary.
Right.
That's what we stand to do. I don't know about you, but I'm certainly ready to not just defend our freedoms, but to stand here amongst you no matter how cold it is, no matter what season, no matter how often we do this, to talk about these same issues and hope that they go viral. Right. We want everybody in the country, especially starting here in Maryland, to understand where we stand. This is not a message about discrimination. We don't dislike folks. Well, at least not common sense folks. We have a healthy respect for all human beings, but we love our country.
Right.
And we didn't get here overnight. A lot of men and women sacrificed for the opportunity for us to stand here and assemble and have our free speech and walk around and have and keep and bear our arms. Right. And we do intend to do that. We don't do that because we dislike people outside the country, and we don't do that because we dislike people inside the country. I think it's always amazing to me how knee-jerk these reactions always come as soon as these type of incidents happen. Yep. And sometimes I want to say to Governor O'Malley, you need a job, son. You need a job. That doesn't include my taxpayer dollars. All of a sudden, you want to pass one of the worst bills in terms of taking Second Amendment rights away for something that happened, I don't know, in Connecticut, maybe in Columbine, I don't know, but you were the mayor of a city that was the homicide capital of the country.
That's right.
Hundreds of thousands of children mowed down by those same weapons. Didn't look at one Second Amendment encroachment law. Right. Sometimes I want to say to our commander-in-chief and our president the same thing. You're from Chicago.
Right.
Some of the most strict gun laws in the country and some of the worst homicide rates in the country. But all of a sudden now, we want to ban arms. If you don't believe it's political expedience to get elected again, then you're at the wrong rally. But don't you worry. We're going to change perceptions. We're going to change realities. I'm Charles Lawler. I'm proud to stand alongside of you. And one way or the other, we're going to defeat this madness going on down here in Annapolis. It's going to catch fire. And yes, we're going to take our country back.
Amen.
Yes. Now, I have the privilege. I have the privilege to introduce the next speaker, and I'm honored to take that privilege. First of all, every male, female person that comes up here to speak to you, please support them, because more than just their words are on the line. Some of these are elected officials, and they're taking a stand to be here, and believe me, their words will be YouTubed. So somebody will hear them. So support these men and women, because it takes courage to come down here and open your mouth and speak for a cause. This man I've respected even when he was a legislator down here. That is saying a lot. I've followed his journey into politics at least for the past 6 years, 7 years since I've been here to Maryland. He's now in the House of Congress down there working with even more unfortunate idiots, bless his heart. I want to remind him all the time, if you're in the pit with the pigs long enough, if you don't get a shower once in a while and come home, you're going to smell like them. But he is here to help defend our freedoms, to speak a word in our Second Amendment. Please, a warm round of applause for our Congressman, Andy Harris.
Thank you very, very much for being here. You know, Charles said it right. There's no one here who doesn't think that was a tragedy in Newtown. There's no one here. No one here thinks that mentally deranged person should not have had a firearm. No one here. But to use that excuse that we're going to change our rights for safety, it's not a new concept. 250 years ago, Ben Franklin said those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Ladies and gentlemen, our liberties are under assault as they have never, ever been. Now, and it's not just an assault coming from behind us here. It's an assault coming from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, coming from the White House. This week was a bad week for liberty. We had a president who decided that he was going to attack our liberties. We have a governor who decided he was going to attack our liberties. Now, who's got the sign about the fingerprinting? Hold that sign up. My daughter's a nurse. Some of you know that. A friend of hers works downtown Baltimore. Wants to move downtown Baltimore. Now, downtown Baltimore, despite what the governor's press release said yesterday, is not a safe place.
We know that.
It's a dangerous place. So her friend, who comes from North Carolina, a slightly freer state, is going to buy a gun to protect herself when she moves into Baltimore. And how is she going to be treated under the governor's proposal? She is going to be fingerprinted like a criminal.
Right. Amen.
Because they can't control the criminals.
That's right.
Now let's talk a little bit about liberties. Now I'm going to disagree a little bit with Charles and with Ginny, because they said that right to own a firearm is granted to us by the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, where did we get our rights? That's right, and this is not a new concept. John Locke in the 1600s said we have the right to life, liberty, and property, and in our Declaration of Independence it said, and I'm going to read this so we get the words right, Governor, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It goes on. It says that to secure these rights, not to give these rights, to secure the rights, government was instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the governed, and we have to withdraw the consent to that government. Now, rights are particularly important to me and my family. Many of you know my family, my mother and father came from communist countries, and let me tell you something.
That's right.
That's how they suppressed their people.
Yep.
They didn't allow them to have guns. Because guns in the hands of citizens mean that the government can't just do whatever they want.
Right. Amen.
That means they have to be responsible to the people. That means they need the consent of the people.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot give the consent to our government to trample our rights as they propose this week, and as this governor wants to do. Now let me talk a little bit about what the president is doing. Because this isn't the first time this president is trampling rights.
Nope. No way.
As soon as he got into office, he started a little fight. A fight about whether Americans who are determined to be terrorists in this country can have their Fourth Amendment right to due process. Whether they can be held forever without being charged. Ladies and gentlemen, the way the law stands now, if the government decides that because you have a gun and maybe you're at this rally, you're a terrorist, they can hold you without due process forever. And the president asked for that right to be extended. Then last year, so he went after the Fourth Amendment. Fine, let's keep going. What about the First Amendment? Last year he said that your religious freedom doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
That the government's going to determine what you should believe and how you should believe, and your religious freedom's gone. And then this year, he's coming after the Second Amendment.
That's right. Yes.
I don't like the pattern.
Not at all.
I don't like it. We have a president who believes he can rule by executive order. The good news is, and I know because we just got away from a meeting, 3-day meeting of the House Majority, Ms. Feinstein and President Obama and Vice President Biden's bill is dead on arrival in the House of Representatives. For the president and the vice president is, we still do have a constitution. And he still does need the House of Representatives to agree. And ladies and gentlemen, we will never agree to take away your Second Amendment rights. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't give up. We cannot give up.
Oh, hell no.
In Washington, we're going to hold the line. We will hold the line. But I'm not as convinced that we're going to do it in Maryland.
No, we know we're not.
Because we've got a president who believes, a governor rather, who believes, as Rahm Emanuel said, never let a crisis go to waste.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
He's going to use a tragedy to create an even greater tragedy.
Yep.
Right. That's right.
A tragedy of stripping God-given, constitutionally guaranteed, but God-given rights of liberty under the Second Amendment. That's right. Don't stand for it.
It'll just be the beginning, too.
Don't stand for it. Maryland was called the Free State, but also the Old Line State. Who said Old Line State? Do you know why? Because a group of Marylanders held the line. Held the line to preserve this country.
I love it.
And it's our job to do it again. And this is the line. This is the line that's going to stand between freedom and tyranny in Maryland. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to introduce, when I worked here under this dome, it's my pleasure to introduce one of the greatest defenders of our rights, still a great defender of our rights here in Annapolis, and one who's going to help us. And you need leaders in this, because ladies and gentlemen, they got their leader. We need leaders. It's been a pleasure to work beside Nancy Jacobs, one of the greatest defenders of our freedoms here in Maryland.
Thank you all. Now there was a gentleman or somebody in the back who had a wonderful sign. Oh, there it is. Gun control is like trying to reduce drunk driving by making it tougher for sober people to own cars. That's one of the best signs I've ever seen. Let's put that sign, everybody take a picture of it, put it all over Facebook. That is a great sign. And the parallels are 100% true. I think I might be the only woman senator that packs. Just bought a new gun, a SIG, a couple weeks ago. Excited about it. Been firing it. Like it a lot. I have my granddaughter with me. Young lady there in pink. Her name is Abby. She's 13 years old. She knows how to shoot. And she knows how to handle a gun correctly and safely. This is how we need to raise our children. Not to be afraid. Not to want to take people's rights away from them. The people down here don't know the difference between a magazine and the Sunday Sun. I mean, come on. We're trying to educate them. It's hard to educate fools. It's hard to educate people who don't want to know the truth. You can't fix stupid. I heard that yesterday somewhere else too. It was pretty good.
Was it at the White House?
It might have been at the White House. I just want to tell you, there's a lot of us down here who stand with you, who are going to stand for you, and we are not going to give up. And like Charles was saying, I mean, I don't want anybody to break into my house, but they will be surprised if they do. And to say that we can't have magazines with more than 10 rounds in them?
9 and safe.
An assault weapon? Oh, come on, that's a bogus term.
Yeah, how much safer is that?
We haven't had, back in the 1980s, right, Alex? Was when we were not allowed to have machine guns like the Army does.
Right.
These so-called assault weapons are replicas. They're cosmetic. They're not machine guns.
Right.
You pull the trigger once, it fires. You pull the trigger twice, it fires.
Like my 9mm.
Just like my 9mm, and my 380, and my 38. Guys, you need to be down here when we're having those hearings. You need to be down here. You need to be calling. You need to shut down the system in Annapolis. You have got to. And you need to be calling those senators and delegates that don't believe that your Second Amendment right is your Second Amendment right. We have got to stop them. And the only way we are going to stop them is to educate them. I'm not sure they're educatable, but we need to do it. We need to show them. We need to make them understand we are law-abiding citizens. We have no intention of hurting them. We have no intention of giving up our Second Amendment rights, and we shouldn't. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. I stayed down overnight with my granddaughter so I could be here today rather than go home, because I believe in what you all believe. And they're going to have to take me out of here because I will not give up. God bless you. God bless Maryland. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jacobs. Our next guest speaker is Delegate Don Dwyer, who actually has 2 pending pieces of legislation, and he's going to tell you all about it.
Hey, Don. First of all, thank you all for being here. It matters. It really, really matters.
Amen.
First of all, let me thank the veterans that are here. Let me thank the veterans that are going to see this on the internet, because men have bled and died for the freedoms that we tend to take for granted. Bled and died. And today many of them lay in hospitals, not cared for, substandard treatment. We should be ashamed as a nation, ashamed of how we treat our veterans and how those who have fought and bled for us, again, for the freedoms that we tend to take for granted. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important freedom that we have, because without it, we don't have any other freedoms.
Right.
None. Am I a radical? Yes, I'm a radical. You think the founders were radicals in their day? You better believe they were. Yeah, they were radical too, like every one of you. But you know the difference between us and the real radicals? The real radicals are out killing people innocently.
That's right.
They're the real radicals. We're the people that tend to live peaceful lives, aren't we?
Yep. Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, I do have two pieces of legislation that directly deal with this issue. The first one would prohibit the federal government from enforcing its gun restrictions and taking of our guns in the state of Maryland across all sectors. All sectors.